share price dropped by 95% last week, I think it was quite logical that they would definitely put a hold on trading. If you hold those shares at the moment, they are worth but a fraction of what they were a week ago. And this is after the market panicked. But it's generally a thing that's done when there are problems with specific companies, and in particular financial companies, to make sure that there aren't any kinds of strange trading activity going on in these shares, that the trading doesn't jump around because of rumors, that kind of thing. It's basically to protect investors from any kinds of strange happenings in the market that's out of their control.
All right. Now, the Reserve Bank has come in and saved the day, providing a bailout framework for Able, and it's essentially brought up what's described as Able's bad book. What is the distinction between a good book and a bad one? And is there a possibility that the Reserve Bank might not recoup the 7 billion rand it's going to fork out?
Well, the distinction is actually quite simple. The good book would be all the loans that are still being paid, so that would be everything that's still going well. The bad book would be those loans that are not being repaid. So that would be South Africans that maybe lost their jobs, they aren't able to repay anymore, and that's obviously the big issue that African Bank has faced so far. The Reserve Bank would obviously be taking over this bad book at a big discount, because they would have to make an estimate of how much money they would be able to recoup. Details of this bad book has not been released. So at this stage, it's speculation about whether the Reserve Bank would be able to recoup the money. The Reserve Bank is held in high regard, so I don't think they would step in and make any kind of big financial mistakes. So I'm quite confident that they would be doing well in recouping this money.
Righty-ho. Now, we're hearing about haircuts for debt holders. Can you just elaborate as to what that means in this particular case?
Well, it basically means that in the case of African Bank, because the company does not have as many depositors as you would see in other banks, for example, ABSA, they don't have as much money in their kitty to lend out, so they would go to the bond market, borrow money there to be able to lend to their customers. Now, obviously, we've seen the share price on the JSE. The shareholders have had a big amount of punishment. The same thing will have to go to the bond market, where bondholders would have to sort of reduce their claims on the assets of African Bank. They would have to decide will they go with the good or the bad assets. It's similar to what's happened on the JSE. You've got a claim on the company. The company is now worth a lot less, so you'll have to take a bit of a cut in the value of your assets. All
right. Now, the plan is to have an entity, a bank essentially, that runs the good book, which a number of financial houses appear willing to underwrite. Does that possibly mean that the Able brand will fade away? And do you think institutional investors will be willing to pump more money or new money into the new entity?
At this stage, there's no certainty if the name African Bank will continue. Personally, I think it should. People are familiar with this name. The company's got 3 million customers, so just quickly changing the name is not going to be an easy thing. I think the commercial banks that have stepped up to provide support for this institution, they've done so in the spirit of keeping the South African banking system stable. Look, if African Bank completely collapsed, then people would go to every other bank and try and take their money out. The ATMs would go empty, the queues would be very, very long at every shop and every store. So for ABSA and First Rand, Investec, those kinds of companies, the best thing would be to keep the banking system stable. That's the reason why they would be putting money into this, and they would act in a similar fashion when it comes to determining if they have any influence at all in terms of the name of the company going forward, what exactly will be listed on the JSE, who the shareholders will be.
Thank you so much for explaining everything so succinctly. That was Christy Viljoen, he's Senior Economist at NKC Independent Economist.